finally, after a couple of years, Bradley Manning was given a chance to speak publicly. He was seen by humans, and he saw the sun. So he testified recently. There were, I think, 6 hours of intense questions to him, and he described a number of things that happened while he was locked down. And so I want your opinions. Some of the details given here are shocking in the way that he was treated. And when you actually think about what he did and what we found out from the leaks that he was responsible for, it seems like the most disproportionate use of I guess, the prison system that's possible. And the one example that I want to start with that I was so shocked at is that he wasn't allowed to just, first of all, his toilet is in view of guards. They're just watching him on the toilet. He doesn't have toilet paper. He has to then march up to the gates and announce, Lance Corporal Detainee Manning requests toilet paper.
Every time.
That may seem silly, but that's the level of what we're dealing with.
No,
here.
it's a by the way, and then you can continue. But that's a humiliation. That's part of the process.
Exactly.
That's a very carefully thought out series of humiliations, and that's just one of them.
Well, the overarching theme in all of this was Orwellian, where they would say, well, we're going to put you, we think you're suicidal. And to be fair, Manning, when he was first put in a cage in Kuwait, and there was no air conditioning, and there was, and even his cage in Quantico was 6 foot by 8 foot. Think about that, 6 foot by 8 foot. And he's
in it for 23 hours a day.
23 hours a day, and there's no light that goes into it at all. In fact, he would stick his head onto the door because he could see what he said was, quote, a reflection of a reflection that kind of saw the outside, right? So he wouldn't see the outside, he'd just see a little bit of light from the reflection of the reflection. He's in there for 23 hours. When they let him out, they shackle his hands and feet, and they let him walk around like that for 20 minutes a day. That's all he had. This is all of this before he was ever charged.
Yeah.
He's supposed to stay in Quantico for only 90 days maximum. He stays there for triple that amount, okay? He's supposed to go to trial by 120 days. That is the military rule. They kept him for over 900 days before they charged him, okay? Nearly 1,000 days. So in the midst of all this, as they do this harsh treatment, they say to him, well, we have to because we think you're suicidal, so we have to watch you at all times. We can't let you sleep at night. They'd reverse his day, by the way. What is this? How would this help in not committing suicide?
And they left a light on his eyes and wouldn't let him cover his face with a blanket so that he didn't have the light in his eyes as he tried to sleep.
Again, that's all part of the, right? Isn't that part of the protocol that you
to try to drive someone crazy. It's psychological torture. They would turn on the lights at 10 o'clock at night and shine it into his face. And they're like, well, we don't want you to commit suicide. What? Right? And so after he started doing things, they wouldn't let him exercise. Exercise is illegal, okay, under these circumstances. So he was like, I don't know, how do you pass 23 hours a day? So he started doing fake exercises like lifting weights that aren't there. Dancing, because dancing is not forbidden, okay? Yeah. He's like, I'm not exercising, I'm dancing, right? They're like, you see that? He's crazy. He's dancing without any music, and he's lifting weights that aren't there. So we got to keep him on further suicide watch and keep him in these inhumane conditions. And by the way, the UN has already said that this was inhumane, degrading, and against the conventions on torture, okay? Yeah. So he goes through all this, and then they use it to justify it against them. And he says, look, at one point, he finally confides to one of the guards who seems like he's a little bit more human. He says, look, if I wanted to hurt myself, I mean, I guess I could use my underwear or the flip-flops or something, but obviously I don't want to hurt myself. When are they going to stop this? And that's 8 months in. What do? They're like, you see that? He said he was going to hurt himself with his underwear. Yeah. So they make him strip down naked every single night and sleep naked for fear of his safety. Yeah. Like they were so concerned about his safety.
And they turn apart his whole bed every night. There has not been a second where he was not being watched, and he wasn't allowed outside. There's no items coming in there during the day, but they still had to break apart the bed. Another thing he did other than dancing to pass the time was he would just make faces in a mirror because that was the only entertainment he had. So they thought he was going crazy because he was making the faces. But the example you gave of when they finally let him out for 20 minutes or so a day, they shackle him so he has to be held up as he walked. It's a ridiculous situation, so I'm going to make some ridiculous comparisons. That is harsher treatment than Javier Bardem got in Skyfall, and he was a killer cyber terrorist. It's harsher than Magneto got in the X-Men movies, and he could move metal with his head.
No, but they actually had military experts testify in the real world in this trial saying it is actually harsher than what people get at Guantanamo. Okay.
Right, Guantanamo looks like Mr. Rogers' neighborhood compared to what this guy's gone through. And by the way, we're not evaluating his case, but I do think it's fair to evaluate the way American citizens are treated. And the idea that you could subject this guy to this sort of treatment is insane. And to your point, John, if you saw this account and it was some Muslim prison where they were detaining hostages, you go, look at this. This is unconscionable the way they treat. No, this is not. This is the United States military treating one of its own this way. I understand one of its own that will be tried and will likely suffer a nasty fate at the hands of trial. But you don't expect this is really unconscionable, and it should concern every American citizen, because in a way we could all fall victim to it, especially under the Patriot Act, when you can just scoop anybody up and pretty much begin to treat them in ways that aren't normally sort of mainstream prison-like ways.
Even if you don't care about Bradley Manning, you should at least care about this country and what we do to our citizens. And even if you think it's not going to happen to you, and by the way, you say like, oh, I don't do stuff like that, but what did he do? I mean, people on death row are not treated like this. Why did they have to shackle him? Was he something that was going to snap like Hannibal Lecter and rip every? He's alleged to have done a crime where he leaked something on a computer. There are no computers nearby. It's not like he's going to jump onto a computer and leak something, right? I mean, the point is to torture him, is to torment him.
Yes.
And one of the points, by the way, should be clear, is so that he would turn on Julian Assange, which he never did, and say, oh, Assange was part of it. And that's what they wanted to get out of him, and they never got out of him.
Which is amazing.
So, and now people will say, and I said in the beginning, and it's true. They said, look, what he did, if it is true, is illegal, right? And you can't, and according to military rules, obviously, you cannot just leak things at your discretion, at your own judgment. I get that. But he has suffered enough. And by the way, also, according to military rules, so if you care about military rules, if you have this kind of treatment, before you are charged, okay, and what they call degrading and inhumane treatment, which the United Nations Special Council on Torture has already said is degrading and inhumane treatment, and of course our judge will have to confirm that. But if he does confirm that, which is obvious, right, then he is supposed to be let go, okay? So that is military rule as well. And so I think he has served more than enough time.
Yeah.
And even if you thought he was guilty, all right, how much are you going to torture the guy? Point delivered, it's time to free him.